Here are some events from my life. I was born in 1938, and I can remember during the Second World War, there was a field located by the side of the house where I lived, and a group of us boys, 6 and 7 years old, we would go out in that field and dig foxholes and play Army. And I can remember, it was kind of in a mountainous region, and I can remember digging the foxhole, and of course our guns were sticks. And in my imagination, I lived in the mountainous area, and I could see the enemy coming across the mountain. And the way you would associate the enemy with real life, I can remember squadrons of B-17s coming over, going wherever they were going, probably ferrying them, getting ready to take them into Europe. And back then, in your neighborhood, if some guy who was in the Air Force at the time happened to be flying his airplane to wherever he was going, he would always come by and buzz his hometown. And I was so attuned to the sound of an aircraft that I could hear one coming and would be outside, if I was in the house, instantly to see the aircraft. And if it happened to be, say, a fighter plane flown by one of the local guys who was in the military at the time, I was always disappointed when they completed their buzzing and went on their way. And I can remember seeing a C-47 coming over the house pulling a glider. And a C-47 with its radial engines has a distinct sound. Part of it has to do with the resonation off of the fuselage. And even now, if a C-47 comes over, I know instantly what it is. And a few years back, some guys who lived near my home had a private freight company that they used a C-47 that they would fly freight late at night. And I could hear that C-47 come over the house at night, and it propelled me back to the Second World War when I was a child playing Army, not really having any idea of how critical and trying that time was. And in the community that I lived in, my father happened to be the superintendent of a company, and we were the only people in town who had a telephone, and it was one of those crank-type telephones. And during the Second World War, a lot of tragic news came across that telephone. I can still hear the bells ringing. It had two big bells on top of it. And when if you happened to be in the room when it would ring, you would jump out of your skin. And if you had to make a long-distance telephone call, you would have to pick up the receiver, get an operator, tell them where you were going to call, give them the number, and then they would make all of the connections, and sometimes it would be an hour or 2 hours, and they'd call you back and they'd have the connections. And a lot of people came by our home to call relatives who were in the military. And it was an exciting time for a young boy, 6 or 7 years old. Of course, I would have been 7 years old in 1945. But the thing that I remember most is playing Army and getting together with my friends and digging foxholes in the field beside our house, and just waiting for squadrons of B-17s to come over to help us play Army. That's just an episode out of my life. Thank you very much. You have a good day.